There's so much to talk about with you. So
I know it's nonstop.
All right, so we're officially live. All right. So Jackson, my good friend Jackson, who we met, I don't know if it was a year ago. I don't know if it was a year ago. I honestly don't know, Jackson. Like, was it? It's been within a year, I think. I mean, it's been more than 6 months.
I think it's coming up right up on it.
I think it is too.
Yeah, right on a year.
And thanks for joining, right? Like, and we do this to, because you're a sales expert. I don't know what I am yet, but I'll figure it out at some point. But we were just talking beforehand, like, as we always do, is like, oh, we should save that for, going on live, right? We have no agenda. We're going to talk about, obviously, AI agents, and that is an important part of it. And we'll kind of weave in some of the other stuff that is important in terms of, I think, and probably you think, in terms of the best way to use AI agents specific to thought leadership, content, and frankly, even in just the sales automation process, right? Things that can replace. But one of the things we just started talking about offline, I was like, let's just go live, is, your background in recruiting, human capital, let's call it. And that's a big part of the discussion, right? But let's just set it for what you were just started to talk about, and then we can go into the AI part of the business. What may or may not be replaced by human capital. But let's talk about that first.
Yeah. So I've been doing. Somebody I had a meeting with last week said it the best, and I thought I'm going to steal it. They asked me how I became a people liaison. I'm like, that sounds fancy, and I'm taking it. People liaison will be the title from now on. But I got into staffing on the light industrial side a little bit over a decade ago. And that's, all your picker packer and your clerical work, and then moved into IT after that. And the game has shifted so much to a different side. And I was just starting to talk about being disenchanted with a specific aspect of it. And the aspect that is disenchanting to me is all on the surface level. So you take kind of the humanity piece out of it, and there's multiple facets you can see that happening. And I think AI is going to play a major role, and is playing a major role in bypassing some of this that I'm about to say, and then also playing into it in another way. So we'll hit on that. But if you're early on in your career, and I'm not saying everybody does this, I'm saying that I did this as a salesperson. As a new salesperson, we all have something called commission eyes, right? So you go into a conversation, and if you are any kind of seasoned, and I'm talking like peppered seasoning, not a lot of seasoning in business, you can see commission eyes in a salesperson's eyes. And that's just, this person doesn't really care about me or my business or who I am or what I do or my experiences or where I'm going. They really want that signature because they're going to get their 6 to 8% commission, and then they're going to be off and running to the next one. So it becomes a numbers game. In the numbers game, at the beginning of it, you quickly realize that there's no end game there. You're just throwing spaghetti against the wall. Every now and then you get lucky and something will stick, but eventually that thing's going to rot. And you can't eat off of that for any longer period of time than what you have it for. I'm going to be heavy on the metaphor and analogies here on this. Food, sports, just get prepared for it. But I still think today, like 10 years later, we still see a lot of that. Like for me, that's changed to the point of that's the piece that I am so distancing myself from, and I think I have been. Where I'm not.
Would you almost liken that to, like, because we have this conversation a lot with different prospects. Would you liken what you just described to being transactional versus being relationship driven?
Yeah, Terrence, you're so much more professional than I am. But the transactional is 100% the way to put it. I put it's one of those where you have the hunter mentality. You get to hear this a lot in sales interviews across the board. Are you a hunter? Are you hungry to go out and eat what you kill? And then the transition, the one on one side, you have what you're talking about, which is the transitional aspect of it, which is like, I'm going to hunt, I'm going to kill it, I'm going to eat it, and that's my only meal for that day. And then I'm going to go and do it again the next day. I'm going to do it the next day. Whereas the relationship piece of it is this share mentality, this give mentality. I think one is take, I think one is give, transactional and relational. And the take is, I'm going to take it for what it is right now, and I'm probably going to leave some there. I'm not going to deep dive into what this relationship could be or what this person could be working on, what really benefits them. I'm more interested in what benefits me. And on the flip side, the relational side it's all give mentality. I really want to, I'm going to give you a specific example. I really want to provide a service to you. I don't know what that service is yet. I need to get to know you. I want you to get to know me. This is a trust relationship that we need to build. And you kind of get this, this little, okay, the shoulders relax a little bit. Oh man, this guy's not out to just, pick my pockets here. It's okay. Let's have a little conversation. The example I'll use is what I posted this to LinkedIn this morning, which was,
I haven't seen it yet.
So
normally your stuff comes up for me pretty quick too.
Well, I'm going to pretend my feelings aren't hurt, but we'll move on.
Don't blame me, blame the algorithm.
Hey, big brother. Hey man, we're not blaming the algorithm at all. Love you, algorithm. Keep pushing my stuff out. No, so I posted this, and this is something that I've been doing, and I've been tracking it. So the last 2 days, I sent out 75 voice notes to new connections. First
75 voice notes.
75. And so for those who don't know, the only way that you can send a voice note is A, via mobile, but also B, they have to be a first connection. You cannot send a voice note to a second connection. So what I'll do, and if you're not doing this, do it, please, is as soon as they connect with me, I've already looked at their profile before because I'm not just blindly sending out connection requests. I know something about them, but I'll send a voice note and I'll say exactly the kind of message I sent. Terrence, I really, really want to take just a quick moment, give you a really genuine, appreciative note on connecting with me. I don't take it lightly. I see you're doing some really intriguing, interesting stuff over there at Founders in the Funnel. I would love to pick your brain about it. I'm very selfish in the way that I want to learn, but hopefully there's something I can do for you at some point, whether it's just bouncing ideas off each other, just picking each other's brains in general. Love to have a chat with you. Hope you have an amazing day. That's it. Just something along those lines. I'm not asking for business. I'm not asking for anything like that. I would love, and it's true, I want to chat. That's part of this. The stats here, 75 of them in the last 2 days, 34 responses out of the 75. 20,
I'm not good at math, but that's almost 50%.
45.33%. I'm acting like I didn't do that on my calculator when I was actually looking at the stats. But we'll digress. But of those 34 that opened it, 20, and I can't remember the exact number I posted it, but it's in my notes, 20 something of those were actually returned voice notes. And the reason I put this out there is because every time that I get a voice note back, it's always one of two things. It's a chuckle, like, hey man, I didn't know you could do this. Like, I didn't even know you could do a voice note. This is great. Or it's, hey, I really appreciate you taking the time to send me a voice note. It's nice to hear somebody's voice. Both of those things accomplish the same thing for me. And it's when we have a follow-up chat, and when we talk about whatever I referenced in there, because I do reference something in that voice note, when we have a face-to-face like we're doing, that awkward introduction piece is gone. That's already there. We're already a little invested. This is a long-winded, and if you and I have if anybody's listened to Terrence and me talk, you understand that I'm a very long-winded person anyway. But the point of it is, going back to your original question, is that is relational to me. And the equivalent on a transactional side, to put it in these LinkedIn terms, would be blindly just hitting connect. And then once they do, great, they're on my connections list. Hopefully when somebody looks at how many connections I have, it doesn't do anything. So the transactional piece of it is so by the wayside on the staffing side for me. It's all relational. It has to be relational.
Here's my question. Let me go on a soapbox for a second. Like we talked, because all of our prospects and clients are like, let's call it B2B consulting and professional services. And for the main part, it's specific to IT, but we're getting a lot more in like financial advising and M&A, our consulting, oddly enough, which I want to talk to you about after this. And then professional services, to where the first question now we're asking is like, hey, has lead generation worked for you, right? In your business, right? And if they're like, no, or yeah, either way, we're like, okay, well, tell me about it, right? And it always comes back to that they're typically in a relationship-driven business model, right? Mm-hmm. And there are transactional businesses. There are transactional businesses. Hey, I need a mortgage tomorrow. Do I care if it's, Joe down the street or whatever? Like, no, I want the best rate or whatever, right? So there are transactional business models, but our ICP, our ideal client, prospects are ones that are in relationship driven, right? And I think a large percentage of the people that are on LinkedIn would say the same thing about their own ICP, right? Yeah. And so and frankly, I think probably a large majority, even, the mortgage brokers sitting out there right now going to me, Terrence, my business is relational too. You just tried to make me a transactional business. It's not. And so that the funny part is everyone acknowledges that relationships is a huge component of their business model. And yet they will still try and do transactional things, transactional sales and marketing Legos from the bucket to do those things. And so you give something to where, hey, is that scalable? Probably not, but does it matter? Like if you send 75 out, right? 75 targeted, and that's what we've been doing for a lot of clients too, is we call it Dream 100, which essentially it's like you were 25 short, by the way. You should have put that work.
Oh, dare I?
But, you're like, hey, you know what? Like, who are the people that would be my ideal client prospects, right? And say, great, I'm going to use voice notes. It's so easy to cut through noise. That's the other complaint, right? We always hear it's like, oh, it's so hard to cut through the noise. Well, it is if you're blasting out 10,000 emails with the same BS offer, like
copy
hey,
paste.
It's all about me. Would you like to set up a meeting? Here's my calendar link. It's like, I don't even know you, So I guess my question is, why? This is a philosophical one, and I'll let you go off on it. Why, even though we all know, or most of us, the majority of us know and acknowledge that our business models are relationship driven, why do we try and shortcut things and go to transactional type of things to shortcut the process?
I think there's a misconception on one end, and I think one of the easiest answers, and the one that people are going to get really defensive about, is that we're lazy. Is that you think that the shortest way is shortcutting, which is not the way to what we're looking for. If there's a dichotomy of existence. Of one side is the reality is the best businesses, the best clients, the best partnerships are all relational, and we understand that. At least we understand it at face value, and that's where we want to be that person that somebody goes to. You mentioned the mortgage thing, right? And it's so fun. I'm glad you boomerang back to say like, hey, mortgage guys are probably like, wait a minute, hold on a second. Because if I have a choice, and just to use like one mortgage brokerage as an example, and I know somebody on a personal level, like they've reached out to me, they check in with me every now and then, every quarter, they send me a Christmas card, whatever it may be, versus nobody else doing that, I'm going to that person. Like I'm going to have a conversation with that person. The hope in the ideal, and this is going to sound so counterintuitive to all salespeople, I apologize, but is that if they have a bad rate, and they know where to get a better rate, and we have a good relationship, they're going to do the best that they can to get me that rate match, if they can, if there's any kind of thing to go there. But if not, they're at least going to give me the market knowledge to make my own decision. And that's very counterintuitive to what salespeople in general, a lot of times, at least in my experience, I don't want to put this on everybody, are taught early on. It's like, no, you got to close. ABC, baby, ABC, always be closing, push it, ram it down their throats, make sure. No, like that may be fine for today, but that person today is not going to be the person that's benefiting tomorrow, and so on and so forth. So why do we shortcut things? First answer is that I think we're lazy. We want the shortest, quickest success. We live in a world of immediate gratification. So how do we get that? And it looks surface level like that's going to be the answer. I mentioned this in that same post. Zero of those relationships that I'm building with the contacts that were just made, I'm more excited to see where they head month, 3 months, a year down the road. That's going to be more beneficial, more productive to me than a 5-minute quick close where I see the dollar on the bottom line today. Because I know that the value in the long run, the ROI on that in the long run, is not going to be a single opportunity. It's going to be a multi-leveled opportunity based on the fact that we built a trust up. And my goal, and I think this is where the answer to your question is too, is the shortcuts. People are looking for a single answer, the single spot, single way. The relational aspect, it provides opportunities that you might not even be aware of in the moment, but you're building a trust, you're building a catapult that's going to take you in different areas where, you might not see it this week. And that's tough. That's really tough pill for people to swallow, especially if they, have their metrics and they're trying to meet their KPIs and they got a bottom line, man, I need it. But that relationship that I built that went cold, that we send a card to and check in with on a quarterly basis, I talk trash about a football team, and I can't talk trash, I'm a Jets fan, but I talk trash about a football team and comes back to me, all of a sudden they have an opportunity in a project that opens up, I'm the guy. It's this relationship, it's long-term thinking. I've talked about this in every single meeting that I've had from a coaching standpoint. There are two things that are always present, or always should be present, when you're prospecting, when you're going into a meeting, when you're building that meeting up. And you've got to be very careful with the first one. And the first one is immediate impact, because your immediate impact is going to be your first impression. And that's going to be either this guy just wants my money, this guy just wants it now, this person just wants me to close quickly, or it's going to be there's a vested interest here to understand my need. There's a vested interest here to give. There's a vested interest here to be having this conversation a year down the road, not just tomorrow. There's not really any in between there on your immediate impact. The other thing is long-term ROI. What is your long-term ROI? I can tell you one thing for absolute certain is if your immediate impact impression is the first one, the just in it for right now, you are not going to have the option for a long-term ROI. In the second one, you're going to have a myriad of options for a long-term ROI. The best way, and I promise metaphors and visuals and everything, right? This is the best way to look at it. I had this conversation yesterday, and it's my favorite one so far, is everybody's been in this position. You're on the highway. There's no exit for miles and miles and miles. There's no food exits. There's no gas exits. There's no hotel exits. You're just on that road. You don't have an option. You're just on that road, okay? My job in my role as a sales professional, but also as a talent agent, as somebody who's looking to bring out somebody's future and somebody's opportunities, my job is to put you on a highway that has an exit every mile that gives you options for a place to stay, what you want to eat, no matter what you're craving, a gas station to refill. If you drive a Tesla, an electric plug-in to plug in, you have options. That's my goal here. And I think if you're really in the giving perspective, then you are doing exactly that. And if you're in the taking perspective, the shortcut perspective, your only aim is to be the only exit in town and take as much as you can when that person comes off the on-ramp.
I think I'm going to take this last 4 minutes and I am going to send it to one of my clients who we had this conversation with yesterday. And just from a standpoint of I think just a lot of times we just need to reframe things on our own head. And you mentioned kind of the long-term ROI versus the transactional metrics that we judge ourselves by. And that just that inner wrestling that we have, right? They're a $20 million consulting firm. They have a board of directors and they go through that, right? All acknowledge that the relationship side and the long-term ROI is what's important, but it's you're still trapped a lot of times with the business functions of tracking metrics and transactional type of things. And it's just this, devil on one side, angel on the other thing that is like a push and pull. But I literally am going to take that and I think I'm sending it over to him. All right, let's switch this over to, I want to talk, we're obviously going to talk about AI agents, things you're doing, things we're doing, but I want to talk about it too, if in relation to HR capital and more importantly, you're having a lot of conversations with founders as we do too.
Yeah.
So maybe start off with some of the things they're looking at, their concerns when it comes to capital, human capital, and maybe see if we got a good topic there to talk about before we get into specifics of what we're doing.
From the AI perspective, you talk about AI specifically.
Yeah.
So the conversations that I'm having are not all, but mostly based around as it pertains to the evolution of technological advancement and how we're going to propel, the human capital piece of the business. And so how does it not take away from what in the past might have been something along the lines of, hey, this uses a step metric. So if you have 10 steps in your internal business organization when it comes to human capital. So when it comes to getting to know somebody, onboarding somebody, training somebody, having the output, the productivity, everything that comes along with it. Those first 3 or 4 steps of the process are really the get to know you process. And in the past, and I've asked this bluntly to founders because I think it's really important that we get this right moving forward. And I think we're also very much in the don't know quite how to utilize it yet phase. That's where you find out things like communication styles. It's where you find out things like feedback opportunity. It's where you find structural integrity of how this person operates on a day-to-day basis, the hierarchy of allocation for your job responsibilities, how you're going to career or map your career and what those steps look like. There's a lot of these intangible things that go into those first few pieces. And that is part of the finding the right person job, right? From an internal perspective. If I'm hiring somebody, if I'm promoting somebody, if I'm training somebody, it all lends itself to the overall proficiency of the overall organization. Everybody gets that. But now we are at a point where we're utilizing and relying on technology to bypass a third of that first piece of the process. So you're going to do all the sifting for me. You're going to allocate, hey, these are my top 3 things that I need. These are the top 3 things I'm identifying from a perspective on both sides. So on one side, I'm searching for a job opportunity, at least in my world, or on the other side, I'm looking to hire the right people or promote the right people or train the right people. So I'm looking at both sides of the things, and I'm trying to shortcut, going back to what we talked about earlier, getting to the position of, okay, I know these 3 people that this technology has sifted for me, and vice versa. Like they've identified us potentially, if I'm a candidate as a company that I would want to go to based on whatever I'm putting in the system. That matchup is meant to shorten that time frame. It's meant to expedite the time frame. I think where we're seeing some of it working really well is tech skill base, and where we're not quite ready to say that it's working quite well is more soft skill based, for obvious reasons. I'd like to get your take on that too. But I'm seeing a lot of success. I'm having conversations with technology companies that are having a lot of success where, man, we're getting some bangers, some pros, some people that their skill sets are out of this world when it comes to their technological skills. Or our training, people don't talk about that kind of enough right now. Our training has changed completely from a technological perspective. That's what I think the benefit is right now. There's the conversations I'm having is, hey, we're utilizing every tool. The struggle, I don't want to say struggle, but the challenge almost is, which tools do we use? Which tools work the best, right? I mean, where are we going? How are we going to utilize? Are we going to implement? Are we going to try all of them? It's a very legitimate question, but I had a funny question from it was CTO last week that said, one of the questions we ask all the time is, hey, can anybody develop the technology to decide what technology we want to use?
Let me jump on that, because that was one of the things I want to talk about in terms of just like getting people to use the tools. And let's just call it just the basic elements, right? So like everyone knows ChatGPT, right? There's Claude. There is Perplexity. There's Gemini. I know I'm probably forgetting. There's DeepSeek, which is the new one that made waves because it's a Chinese-based one. So, and I've tried to use all of them. And what's interesting, to your point, we were like all in on Claude. I still really like Claude, and especially when it came to copywriting stuff. Well, recently, Claude's been giving us some hiccups. They've been like shortcutting. You can start a chat and basically keep feeding it information and keep going. Well, it would cut you off and say, hey, you got to start a new chat. And it was like, wait a second. And then, my co-founder yesterday, Luke, was like, hey, you know what? Like, I know we've been all in on Claude with copywriting lately for probably the last 2 months, but like, he's like, I'm using ChatGPT again, and it's giving me better output. And so to your point, like, I think that's part of it is the tools are changing so fast, exponentially fast. So you have to keep experimenting with all of them just to find out, right? I mean, like even Gemini, like no offense on Google, and we use Google in a lot of our stuff. I got to be careful the word I use. I've used it internally and said it's trash. This is not very good.
It's also, we got to think like these companies are also competing with each other. They're in a race. So while we are 100%. On this side of the business in a race to understand which ones work best for us, they're also racing against each other to figure out how to operate the best, how to be the best option and be the option. We are going to get, and we already kind of have, a cornucopia of options to choose from, right? So which one works best for your company is going to depend on the people within the company. And I love that just came back around to the people aspect. It goes back to preference. It goes back to what works best for me. What am I identifying? What kind of format works best? How am I? Because at the end of the day, no matter the tool, no matter how much it shortens the process, no matter how much easier it makes certain different aspects of your job or the operating capacity of your job, it still comes back to the people at the end of it, right? It still comes back to the person at the end of it. And you can do this throughout history, right? And we won't go down that road because I love history and we could be here for days. But but you can look at it. You can look at the different evolutions of pretty much anything across the board. When they first start continuing to evolve and becoming accessible and becoming an option, it's so much trial and error.
I 100% agree. It's and we hear a lot about using the human capital for prompt engineers, right? And like, that's really I think the biggest part of it. Like, even like this week, I'll give you one example. So I was building out a ClickFunnels funnel, and basically I used Claude. I actually used a couple of the LMs. I used Claude and I used Perplexity to try and prompt. And the way I've been using it is like, hey, here's what I'm trying to do. I'm going to try and, build a VSL for this, for this ICP. And here are the kind of pain points I have right now. Ask me a bunch of questions that you would need to help me get from this point to the point where I have a complete idea of who I'm, right. And then, it was a series of back and forth. Right. And I got to the end of it and I was like, this is like prompt engineering. This is what we're talking about, right? Which is like and the human part, you're not going to be able to get it. It's not like that first question I asked. The response back from both Perplexity and from Claude was like nails. It was like, it was really good at asking me the questions back again. And all I kept thinking in that process is like, oh, this is making me way more powerful as a human prompt engineer.
I love that aspect of it, because that's one thing that I really am enjoying, not just from a personal basis, but also when we talk to candidates and talk to interviewers and talk to founders that are interviewing other people or prepping for a meeting or prepping for a technological review, you can utilize these tools to prep. And the other thing that I like, and I think you mentioned a little bit, the specific of, I can give you an answer. Say you're the AI tool. I can give you an answer, and then you can respond back to it. And then I can say, ask it a different way, or say, let me give you a different answer, or poke holes in this. Like, what am I missing? Like little things, and you're going to get an influx of information. Now, this is going back to, I think this got brought up, and I'm going to do a huge throwback because we are up at about a year here, but we had this conversation, and I think this was one of our first ones, and it was the tool belt conversation. Adding tools to your tool belt.
Yeah.
When you're doing this the right way, this is just going to add tools to your tool belt. You still have to actually put the work in, but you're better equipped. You can do things that you may not have been able to do before. So where I might have had to be like, hey, oh man, I got to call my buddies, or you know what, Terrence knows a lot about this. Let me call up Terrence, see if he's availability. Oh, Terrence is running a company. He doesn't have time to just pick up the phone randomly for me today. How dare he? So, but now I have a phone and I've got this tool where I'm going to practice. I'm going to record it. I'm going to look back at it. I'm going to prep for it. This is a great transition into a big topic for what I'm seeing in specifically mid-market companies.
Ooh, let's hear
it. That are looking to grow their internal teams. They're looking to grow their overall process from the training perspective, like the continued training, not onboarding, but we're talking about continued training down the road as these things come to be. And this,
I mean, we talking across the organization or specific to sales and marketing?
We're talking across the org.
Across the org. Okay.
Across the organization.
Okay.
And specifically with this tool that we're talking about, with this practice tool. Okay. And they're using it for, again, presentation prep. They're using it for meeting prep. They're using it for continued education prep. And then when they do record it and they go back to it and they utilize it. So say you had to before this, I'm not going to say this specific company, but there's a regional company where I'm at in North Carolina, mid-market company, and they had a set time each month for continued education in 4 different departments, staggered across the organization. And it's pretty natural. But what they found was the time that it took to do a learn, do, teach method and actually implement the things that they were implementing from an operational perspective to where they actually saw the ROI, the benefit of it, was there was a large lag time that came behind it. So with these tools, what they're doing now is they have a 1-day set time where they still stagger throughout, but they utilize the tool the same way we're talking about, but they have preemptive prompts. So all the managers are putting the prompts in there for them. So the prompts are there. And then the people that they're training are going through, and they have the prompts to go off of for the continued education, for the practice. Those prompts get sent to the manager, And so it's not like they have to take time out of their day. And so they when they're doing the training and the ongoing education of it, they have the real-time prompts as if you and I were talking face to face, and they can look at it, and it is expedited their process overall to where now they don't have to do it every month. They do it once a quarter. And the implementation piece of it is huge because, and I have my own thoughts about this particular piece, but the AI note takers, right?
The ones that you can't kick off at every meeting, including my own. I have like 8 of them.
Those ones. So there's no in between on the love or the love-hate status of those.
I do love them, by the way, just for the data that it kicks back. But we can talk about that. But that's
100. I mean, yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. But they're utilizing it in a really positive way. What I'm saying is because those AI note takers are literally, and if you haven't used these, some of the information it can spit back out based on like the hot topics that people are going over.
100%. We have one that feeds. So that's what I was going to say. No, I don't want to interrupt real quick, but we have one just on our sales team. So we both have it for our SDR and our closers.
Yeah.
Not really closers. They're, but like to where it feeds back into our own LLM. It's a custom one that's built off of, I think it's built either off ChatGPT or Claude, but that feeds it back in there. So that feedback loop comes back to us, the non-sales guys, right? Because your sales guys are your tip of your spear. So it's feeding back to us the common threads that all of a sudden are coming through in these conversations, whether it be FAQ, whether it be objections, whether it be whatever. And it is incredible. So to your point, keep going. But the note takers are, even though I joke about them being a pain in the butt, ending up in every meeting, they're unbelievable, the data that you can get.
No, that's not an interruption. That's an addition right there. Because that's what I was about to say. With these companies specifically is they're utilizing it exactly in that capacity. The amount of information they get off of these calls, but if we want to reference what I was just talking about specifically as regards to what is getting transferred from training into operational, they kick all that information back. And so they know what's sticking and what's not, but more importantly, they know what's working and what's not. So they're not spending all of this superfluous time going over something that's not working. They're finding very quickly, oh, this is resonating. And my favorite part, and this is the part that I actually really, really like, because I'm with you. The information that I get back from those things is so valuable on the continuation of what we're trying to accomplish. But my favorite part about it is you see what's working from almost like a numerical value, right? You see like, okay, this point, this is resonating really well. But you also see the context that is being discussed, right? By the person. So Terrence is talking about it in a completely different way than I'm talking about it. They're both resonating, and they're resonating for different reasons because you can see the responses on the kickback. So you get this, again, we're talking about expediting. This is the opposite of what I would argue what we talked about earlier, where we're talking about trying to make shortcuts. I don't think this is trying to make the shortcut. I think this is compounding the invested interest in building.
I think it's an expedited and more accurate feedback loop is what it is, right? Because that's one of the biggest things we all complain about. The larger the organizations get, the harder it is for communications, even just in the sales and marketing aspects, right?
Yeah.
Like, sales is like they're completely disconnected. Marketing's basically doing this branding stuff that's not helping us drive the top of the funnel, and blah, blah, blah. And marketing's like, well, we're not really sure what sales is hearing on the street, right? Type of thing. And just to be able to connect the connective tissue, as you like to say, right, of that feedback loop, it cuts out the communication gaps that seem to exist as companies get larger and larger.
That's the best way to put it. The communication gaps. That's 100% what. And when you're using it the right way, you're completely bridging those gaps. To your point, which is huge. I want to talk about you want to keep going.
Go for it.
And I want to bring up. That has been a common thread, and it's AI credibility from a communication perspective. And I'll give you a couple of different examples. And from my personal experience, most of my
what do you mean by AI credibility?
I'm about to tell you. So most of my business prospecting, my relationship building happens on LinkedIn. The vast majority of it does.
Yeah.
And when I say that for prospecting pieces, because once we have a chat, then a lot of it's happening on these kind of meetings and calls and texts. But one thing that completely grinds my gears, and if anybody gets that reference, you're welcome, is when you can very easily tell when somebody is using AI for outreach all the time.
So easy.
You can, I mean, it talk about commission eyes, right? That's the equivalent. You can see when somebody is using that every single time. And I don't know why people aren't catching on quite yet of not doing that. But when I say AI credibility, I mean, there's two ways to go about this. You can use AI to gain credibility, which is what you and I were just talking about. I'm going to ask some questions. I'm going to quick answer. I'm going to do what would have taken me 10 minutes to do some research. It's going to take me 10 seconds to do that research now because I can ask the question. It's going to pop it back out to me. That is utilizing the credibility piece, gaining credibility via AI. That's AI credibility on the positive side. The negative side is what we're talking about, the shortcut piece of it for, I want to say for copy but for genuine outreach copy. And so when I say that, a lot of what I do is I'll record videos and then I will have it described for me, right? Everything that I talked about. And then I'll go through it and I'll look at it and I'll retype it for the way that I want it to look, but it's based off of the video that I made and I want them to go hand in hand. But if you're using AI to construct all of your messages and you're posting verbatim when it pops out and you're posting research claiming it as your own, if you're doing things like this, you lose all credibility. And then what's happening now, specifically in conversations, which is a nice little chuckle every now and then, is like hiring managers like, we know what's going on. Like people think that they're doing this on a regular basis and we're not going to catch it. We know what's happening. Companies know what's happening. Your outreach isn't unique. I think I saw you do this one time, but I've responded back to some of these bot AI generated stuff on LinkedIn and just in a comedic way because it's ridiculous. So that's what I meant by credibility.
And let's stand this because, again, one of the AI tools that we have built internally and that we are now, that's what I was going to tell you about too, that we are now going out to, different marketing agencies that have had this issue with a lead generation and the problem with, clients saying the leads are bad or blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, man, your clients just don't have trust and authority out in the marketplace because they're not putting out content. They're not putting out that leadership. And so we had given it to a couple of our friends that are in the business in our agency world. And they're like, this is great. Right. But I'm going to tie this back to what you said, right? Like, so it's us. So the video content that we're doing here today, that we do as founders once a week, that we do on impromptu stuff. We take that, get them cut up into video shorts. All you have to do is go and look at my profile. I post every day. And the written part of that is our internal AI agent that we built. It's not like Claude or something like that. It's a custom agent that we have built specific for that. What it does, and it's fantastic because we've used it now for 4 months, and it feeds our video shorts into it, and it basically will kick out so if you look at any of my posts, all of that written post is done by the AI, our internal AI agent that's taken it and from my voice from video and done and captured that. And it is really, really good to where like I go through and look at them. I will review them all and go, yep, that's pretty much, that captures exactly what I was trying to do.
Yeah.
That is different. And that is because it's in my voice, it's video, and it's capturing the essence of what I'm saying in that video clip, and then creating a written content from it. Where you're using it incorrectly is if you're like, hey, make LinkedIn posts for me that talk about X, Y, and Z pain point that my clients or my prospects are going through, and write some insightful posts that's going to get me X number of, impressions, that sort of crap. Right.
Yep.
Along with, doing and I know that there's tools that people use for the wrong reasons, like to just basically comment on influencers. And I'm not by no means an influencer. There are guys out there, but you see it, like you'll see those automated, comments, and it's like, this is not doing you any good. Like there are absolute ways to use these AI tools to take away from your credibility and authenticity. And that's one of them. But there are ways, like, again, there's just one example I gave you of the way that we're using it. It helps me get my authentic message out to the market to help build trust, authenticity, and to keep top of mind with everybody. But it's in my voice. Like I don't write a single word, and I'm a copywriter. Like I love writing copy. I write all of our copy for our websites, emails, etc.
Yeah.
I've read those and I'm like, you know what? These are so good that I don't need to, as long as it captures essence of what I'm trying to convey in that video short, then I'm good with it. But
I think that's the best way to do it. I mean, that's using it in the right way, but you said it multiple times, and I think it's really important people hear that. It has to be it has to have the same intent. The same intention has to come through from the copy. And the great thing is what you just said, you can review it, right? You can review it. So the difference between having something in your voice, having it transcribed, posting it alongside, it's compounding what you're doing from the video perspective. To your point, I know at this point, legitimately, I know when I'm getting a Terrence Brantley video. Like during my week, I know when something's popping up. I know when the day's I know when it's going. Like I'm ready for it. It pops up on my home feed.
And by the way, that's all authentic Terrence Brantley. There's no
that.
AI.
I know that's right too. You spend two seconds with you know that's right. But on the flip side of it, the one thing that I want to mention, because I want to give people a little cheat code here. If you can't, for some reason, if there is an emoji at the beginning of a sentence and at the end of the sentence, followed by another emoji and another emoji and another emoji, that's AI. It's either AI or it's a 12-year-old. It's one of the two things. So that is not going to help your credibility by any stretch of the imagination. I want to talk about that in a different and stay on the topic for 1 second longer, because you and I both love LinkedIn, right?
Yeah.
We love.
I mean, that's where our prospects are. That's where most of our clients and prospects are.
Yeah, and just to hammer that home, if you don't think your prospects are on LinkedIn, you're wrong.
They are. Real quick, I'm not to get off track. My brother just retired from LAPD as lieutenant. Shout out to Tim. Nice. And back in the day when I had some background in law enforcement would never be on social media. Like it was like shunned. And I watched him make that post, and there must have been like 40 responses, all from law enforcement individuals. And I remember thinking to myself, man, that is crazy. Back 10 years ago, law enforcement would have never been on there, let alone responding to things. So everyone's prospects are on LinkedIn.
I love this, because everyone's prospects are on LinkedIn. And here's the other thing about it. We talk about authentic voice and how to utilize this when you're doing your posts and you're doing your outreach, and you can automate it. You and I have talked about this ad nauseum, where you spend an hour Sunday night, hour and a half, 2 hours recording video, chop it up, and you've got a month's worth of videos. Yes. I mean, you can just make it work. Yeah. So there's so much opportunity for content. The crux of that being genuine, authentic content, right? Where it's not just content for content's sake. You got to say something that moves. And you've heard me say this a bunch of times, so feel free to eye roll, but you have to make your dribble take you somewhere, right? You've got to go somewhere with the content you're putting out there. But the other piece about your ICPs being out there, your prospects, perfect example. Last week, you see for everybody, like if I make a post, Terrence Brantley is going to see how many likes I get, how many insightful emojis I get, how many thumbs up or whatever it might be. See the comments, the back and forth in the comments. Say I've got like 12 likes and 5 comments. Okay. You see that. What you don't see, and only I can see, is how many impressions that I got on that content. So what may have 12 likes and 5 comments, you're like, say that's nice little thing. That might have 10,000 impressions in the same time frame. Dude. That people don't realize is happening. And a great example is I got a call from someone I had not spoken with in probably 3 years, at least 3 years. Picked up the phone, had his number still on my phone. Like, hey, man, it's been forever. First thing he says, hey, dude, I just saw something you posted on LinkedIn. He didn't comment on it. He didn't like it. He didn't do it. And first thing I told him was, why didn't you comment on it? Because I was in a joking way, but also like, hey, man, you're on there. Interact, get out there, do it. But the purpose is your ICP, your prospects, they're seeing your stuff.
Jackson, this happens. This comes up all the time. And I tell prospects, there's part of it that is like this blind faith gray funnel. It's like this gray funnel that exists. Yeah. And to your point, I'm going to tell you, some of the best performing posts that myself and my co-founders had, and I've had the best I've had is one that did like 220,000 impressions. Yeah. And it probably had 29 likes and maybe 1 or 2 comments. My co-founder, Luke, had one that had over 500,000 impressions. And we're talking over the course of like a few weeks. Yeah. Same thing. Had like maybe 3 or 4 comments, and less than for a 500,000 impression post, I think it had less than 50. I want to say like 30. Yeah. And the point is that doesn't matter. Like those are vanity metrics. But what we hear time and time again is prospect coming out to meetings, clients, existing clients coming saying the same thing. Hey, I've been seeing your stuff, right? Like, and as you know, right? Like, hey, help a brother out. Like, I didn't see you like on it, Ollie. I did not
Yeah.
see you comment on it, Ollie,
Right.
right? Like, help me out. The point being is that like it's serving its purpose. Those impressions are getting you and your message out in front of your ICP. And especially if you do it consistently over time, right? I know you and I talked about months ago, right?
Yeah. It's showing up. It's stacking days, it's stacking moments, it's stacking content, but there's little tricks to the trade, and everybody wants to know tricks of the trade. And I get that, and you should.
Yeah.
You should research them, you should understand them. If you have a really high performing post, everybody put it in your featured section. Put it down there, point to it, celebrate it. You got to interact with people. You can't just sit there. We talked about the ghosting them, or the posting of ghosting. You've got to interact with people, like, comment. Don't comment for comment's sake. We talk about AI. Make actual valuable additional comments to something. Question things. Disagree. My favorite are disagreeing comments. I love to get a conversation going that way. That, believe it or not, there are people out there.
Dude, I'm going to do it on one of your posts. I'm going to disagree with one.
Dude, please, because that's the thing is that we should be able to do that. And that's
I agree. I do think one of the things, by the way, on LinkedIn, the people are very reticent to do that versus like you go on X and man, like that's town square. Stuff flies everywhere. You see, like spears flying everywhere. On LinkedIn, everyone's still pretty a little bit reserved and kind of like professional. Like they're sitting in a meeting like, I'd love to tell this guy to go pound sand and that is a worst freaking idea. But I'm going to be like, great job, Bob. Right.
It's so true. It's the buttoned up version of social media.
Totally.
But it is one of those things where going back to, we talk about the impressions thing and talking about the people that we don't realize that we're reaching. And we talked about this before we got on this call. And here's, for all the benefits of AI, here's where AI can't touch and won't touch and will never be able to touch in my book, is the vulnerability and authenticity and transparency that you can, if you choose to, provide. And you can provide it in different manners. And I'm not talking about like, oh man, Jackson, that sounds like a ton of work. I need to get to know somebody, get to know their likes, their dislikes, take them out to dinner. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about if I'm going to post something out there that I might have been hesitant in the past to post. And the perfect example is just a broad stroke. Hey, this is what I'm struggling with right now. I'm struggling with this. It can be business specific. I'm running into a wall, because everybody likes to post and rushes to post the big win. Everybody. Woo, pump me up, man. You see that dunk? I'm saying that because I can never dunk. But you see him saying, like, those are the things, except for the Fisher-Price one for my 3-year-old. But those are the things everybody sees all the time.
Right.
But what I found is, and it speaks to my soul more than anything too, is when somebody's like, hey, these are the struggles that come along with it. It's somebody raising their hand and saying, hey, I'm doing something that I'm having trouble with. And inevitably, every single time, there are hands that go up and say, hey, man, me too. I didn't realize that. I thought I was the only one going through it. And then there becomes a genuine dialogue. So when you see me posting on LinkedIn on my soapbox that continues to get bigger and taller about the genuine, authentic communication and interaction with people, it's for those reasons, because you're going to have business opportunity. You're going to have the human capital gains on that perspective much more down the road and immediately than you would if you're just interested in celebrating the wins and getting the AI bot kind of interaction on a regular basis. I can't tell you, I don't know, you probably have, because I get the same thing. Do you, the bot recruiter stuff that gets outreach to you all the time?
Like, I don't, because I've been out of the market for so long. They don't even bother with me. I'm
unemployed. No, it's for agencies. Like, hey, when you want to use these recruiters for your agent, I'm like, no, this is nonstop. It's the same people every time. But it's the thing that I love most about this, about the LinkedIn thing, is I do think that if we're using AI in the right capacity, like if we start utilizing it in the way that you and I are talking about on a regular basis, and utilize it in the strategic way that you use it and I use it right now, of like, hey, this can shortcut my genuine content output. Like I can compound it and make it easier. Instead of recording something every day for a month, I record once a day, like for one day, and then I get it out there. And it's in your voice, and you can disseminate that information that way, knowing it's reaching your ICP and knowing those conversations are going to happen. The benefit is boundless.
I think there's a combination of both. I agree with you 100%. And I even think the way that you're doing, there's nothing wrong with that, by the way, in terms of like we do this with, with clients. Like, hey, pick your dream 100. Like, who are your dream 100 ideal client prospects,
Yeah.
right? Because we get like, consulting firms are like, we want enterprise, we want a logo. Okay, great. Like, and like, well, there's no way you can get anything from C-level. We can, but like, let's like put together, like, let's what they look like. Cause the Fortune 500, right, is an enterprise covers a lot of different industries. What industry? Oh, healthcare. Okay, great. Now we're narrowing it down, right? And to say, okay, who are the 100 people that are most influential? Is it really a CEO? I mean, is it? Well, no, not really. It's probably more of like, a CTO or CIO. Okay, like let's talk through that, right? And then eventually it's like, it's the CIO of large, IT, payer insurance companies. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. So let's go out and find 100 of those people, which by the way, that same example we've done with a client, right? And we've done that over the course of a year, and go after those 100 CIOs, right?
Yeah.
Give value, do personal. Hey, John, thanks for being a part of my, network. We're in healthcare, obviously. And it's real important to me. Like if there's anything I can do, right? Like sometimes we'll have podcasts or I put together a roundtable for 10 CIOs from healthcare and pull them in. Like if you'd ever like to be a part of that, but right. Like, but the point being is what you're doing is not scalable, but it doesn't need to be scalable, right?
Right.
Where when I looking and saying what we've built that AI agent in order for us to get our voice one to many out, right? So I record, 1 or 2 podcast sessions a week and get a month's worth of content that gets posted to LinkedIn that's in my voice, right? Those are 2 different things, right? It's like certain things don't need to be scalable and passed over to an agent. And there's certain things that can help leverage you, right? Leverage your voice, your ability to go out and do the things you need to do. But
100%. Well, I think the things that aren't scalable, there you find things that are scalable within those things a lot of times, right? And but to your point, if you have, I love that example that you did for a client, because there are always ways in. The difference goes back to the original question we had about shortcutting and not shortcutting is, are you willing to actually put in the work to find the person? Because the other thing is this, if you're going after C-suite the entire time, for example, guess who's not picking up the phone at the first cold call they get in the morning? Yeah, you've got to do some work here. There's got to be value. It's got to be value driven in what you provide. And I've had a couple interesting conversations, not too many, but a couple of ones where the AI topic specifically has been brought up in those conversations because they're getting bombarded on a regular basis from all of that, from every single angle. We're utilizing it hopefully in a positive capacity. And there's a back and forth of like, listen, how is this benefiting your company? How do you think it could benefit our company? Which I think is funny because I'm not an AI expert. I don't know everything about AI by any means, right? But I know how it works for me. And I think that can translate for different people if you can have the conversation about it the right way. Like if you learn how to communicate. I said this morning, and I made sure to remember it because I loved the topic of this. You can be the most skilled. You can be the most knowledgeable. You can be the smartest person in the room. You can have the most accolades, the most awards. There's nobody that can touch you on certifications. You can know everything under the sun. If you do not know how to network and communicate, nobody's going to know and nobody's going to care. So how are we utilizing the tools around us to get that information out there?
I think you just hit it. Like that literally is what we talk about with prospects all the time. And our prospects are probably very similar to us and very similar to everyone's ICP, right? It's like, hey, we're relationship driven. I've grown my business by network leads, referrals, word of mouth, all those things, right? You are your network, right? We've always heard that, right? Yeah. But being able to use these tools work, perfect examples, right? Like I think the first outreach I had to was for you to come on a podcast, right? Because I was like, hey, you fit the profile of one of our prospects, right?
Yeah.
And therefore it got us into a discussion, right? We like hit it off. We did a podcast together. Since then, you've upgraded your background, yourself, you've upgraded everything. And I'm taking zero credit for it. But like it's so cool. Like we've developed this great relationship, right? You've never given me a single dollar. I've never given you a single dollar. Nope. It doesn't matter, right? But at the end of the day, there are tools that will allow each of us, all of us
Yeah.
in business to build and expand our networks that give us more leverage and capability to establish these relationships like you and I have, living opposite ends of the country, never having met in person, which, by the way, may change this summer. We're coming out to North Carolina, out to the lake. So I want to talk to you about that.
Damn right. Let's do that.
But like, you know, like that the human to human relationship side will never go away. And there are these tools and this opportunity that is available for everyone to leverage to do this at scale if they want to. But they need to do it correctly.
Need to do it correctly. Yeah, I mean, I get. First of all, we're definitely gonna talk about the lake because you come out of North Carolina. There's no way that we're not.
I know. I thought about that earlier when you reminded everybody.
Yeah,
I know.
But the other thing that about this that I think is so valuable, to your point, you and I have had I don't know how many interactions at this point, and just like for this for example, I literally woke up that morning and was like, man, I need to get on a live with Terrence, and texted you like, let's do a live. And this is how
that was like 2 weeks ago. You're like, you had like a hair in your butt. You're like, dude, we need to do a link for live. Okay, right.
It's
let's do it.
Literally what happened. I woke up like, you know what? We need to do a live. And now it's happening. And so it's one of those things where I do think that value needs to be looked at differently. I think that people aren't valuing time value, effort value, exposure value to the degree that I think everybody should. It's all dollar value. And to your point, we haven't given each other $1. This is a relationship, friendship. This is something where we have built something where I really value your intake and your take on things from a business standpoint, from an AI standpoint. Every time we get on here, we laugh. We have something new to talk about. And there's so much value in that. Like, and my wheels are always turning. So I'm already thinking about stuff we talked about that I'm going to post about, that I'm going to talk about, that I'm going to bring up in conversation with people that will probably give me $1. You know what I mean? Like the things that will do in that capacity. Yeah. But the value for this isn't just like, hey man, I know that if I text Terrence, he'll get back to me at some point, right? Like, and I mean that in a good way, right? Because everybody's busy, everybody's got a ton going on. But when you build authentically and you build some authentic relationships, like, you know, if you hit me up, I'm gonna hit you back. It may not be in the next hour or so, but I'm gonna hit you back. And then you build on that stuff, compounds on a regular basis, and it all leads back to what we talked about too. Of and people either love or hate this term, but personal brand. They either love it or they hate it. But guess what? You all have it. Everybody has it, whether you love it or hate it.
I think it's just the personal brand that everyone's like, I'm not trying to be Kim Kardashian. I'm not trying to be, you know.
That's weird. I am trying to be Kim Kardashian.
Let's not go down that rabbit hole. But like everyone does have their personal brand. And all it means is like getting your true authentic voice out there. Like, I'm not for everybody. You're not for everybody. Right. It doesn't matter. But ultimately, these types of tools allow us to reach a larger tribe of our people, whoever they may be. Right. Yep. I keep, when you were just talking through that, I keep coming back to what we talked about earlier in the very beginning of this. And that is that people will acknowledge, I'm talking about really smart people. Like I get to talk to really smart people, but it's easy because my bar is low because I'm down here and everyone else is up there. But like, I talk to really smart people and they're like this angel on one side, devil on one side of like, our business is relationship driven. You know, that's how we've grown. That's what we do. And then they'll literally the next sentence talk about something transactional with regards to sales and marketing efforts, whatever. And it's like, what happened here? Like, why is this gap or this dichotomy of talking about two different sides? And I don't know if it's the combination of the technological tools that have allowed for people to try these different cheat tools, cheat codes, whatever, but you cannot cheat what it takes to build relationships, period. And the value becomes in like, here's the voice note thing. Yeah. Up until, I don't know how long ago, I want to say that's been a recent addition to LinkedIn, like probably within the last 2 years. Okay. Well, so before then there was no way, right? Everything is just kind of text or you get on a meeting, right? So technology allowed you to personalize your connect and message type of thing. So technological tools used correctly will allow us to facilitate introductions to what will be relationships and help us, like tools like this, to be able to allow us to make that relationship stronger. but it's like, it's that devil on one side and angel
Yeah.
on the other that we've got to really.
I think that there's an understanding of, and companies to that point specifically struggle with the fact that they think one is a necessity for survival and one is a proven commodity. And what I mean is like that human connection, which is never going to go anywhere and it's never going to be replaced. If that's the proven commodity. That human connection is what made the wheel come to existence. You know what I mean? Like people worked on that stuff together, and that continued down the line. That's not going anywhere, and it's proven. On the flip side of that, it can be viewed, I'm not saying that everybody does, but it can be viewed as, oh, I need to buy into this necessity that everybody's telling me that I need, and they're not quite sure how to utilize it yet. And it becomes a transactional thought of, if I don't do this, then I'm not going to get to what I know works. I feel like I'm going to be left behind in that capacity. But let me tell you the trick for me on the voice thing that I think answers a little bit of that question to, hey, if people just take the time to try out in one instance while maintaining the human connection piece, because I think you can do that. I really do. I think that you can try to utilize, as we're talking about, utilize these AI tools while maintaining the humanity. That's the best combination. But again, people are butting up against their own heads here. But the funniest reason that I send those voice notes out, and it's funny to me, and it's funny to my wife, and it's funny to people, because if you know me, you know that if this thing gets going, it's 1,000,000 miles a minute. And sometimes it's like, dude, slow down.
But the voice note cuts you off because it's only
the voice note cuts me off in a minute, right? I've gotten so good. My average is right around 35 to 37 seconds right now of getting. That's
pretty good.
It's not bad. But I got the amount of times I saw that red light shine on me when I started doing this was pretty funny. But the other piece is, I'm a self-admittedly hyper person, and like I get really enthusiastic about it. And when I make a new connection and I've done the research on it and they accept it, I get hyped up about it. I'm like, yes, let's build on this, and it comes through in my voice. So I've known that if this camera was completely shut off and you only heard my voice, you could hear the excitement and the feedback that I get on those voice notes. It's like. The one that I got that was really funny was, I was like, hey, send me a voice note. Like, hey man, I got your voice note. It made me sit up in my chair. I was like, yeah, let's go. Let's have a conversation. You can build the human connection with these tools. And I know that's obviously not an AI tool, but with utilizing new tools, you said it's relatively new. It is. Mm-hmm. It's a good example of you can enhance the humanity piece of what you're doing. The goals, I think, I don't want to contradict myself here, but I think that if your goal is to utilize AI to enhance that piece of it, to enhance the getting to the humanity side, the human connection side, you are going to find a way to do it. You're going to do the right tryouts of what works and what doesn't. You're going to find what works and what doesn't, like transcribing your video, mm-hmm. right? That's a great way of utilization. Mm-hmm. And if your goal is to be as transactional as possible and quickly as possible, then you are going to be trying to refill the cup with a hole in the bottom on a regular basis.
I think I will take another step. I was thinking this, you were talking about it. I think if you try to use AI to here's I've had a number of people, because the video AI is getting much, much better, meaning in terms of to replicate you and me in a video to where you could feed it. And someone made the argument to you the other day, like, hey, like, would you try it? And I was like, my litmus test that I use is this my voice, right? And I'm not talking about, hey, yes, I'm going to type up the message that a Terrence says, a Terrence AI bot says, right? Yeah. Like, that's still my voice in terms of the text message, but that's not authentic. That's not the way that Terrence would say it, because the way that Terrence writes something, and the way that Terrence says something, and the way that he uses his hands sometimes, and like you say, gets energetic, that's not Terrence. And I don't think an AI bot's going to do that. So my answer is no. Right? Like I said that to someone. And I frankly, 2 months ago, I was like, I can't wait to build an AI Terrence bot. Now we were going to use it internally for content sessions with prospects. But even then I was like, no, that's not going to facilitate the relationship that I have with the client. So I was like, not doing that. So I think anything that you look at, and here's another one, like we talked about earlier, is like that cheating of like, hey, you can have AI agent bots respond or comment to other, posts on LinkedIn, right? Well, that's not you. Like, so if you're trying to replace your direct you, I'd say stay away from it. it's just going to detract and take away from your personal brand and take away from what you're trying to do, which is build a relationship with one to many or one to one.
Yeah. I'm going to add to that because I couldn't agree more specifically. If you do that, your personal brand is going to become that. And then you lose all credibility and all connectivity because now you're just the AI guy. In a bad way. You're a facade. The one way that I've seen, and I haven't done it to the degree that I want to yet. I'll be honest with you, I can't even remember the specific tool. But one thing that I do really like for video specifics, and I think people can utilize it really well. Like I know when I go in and I edit a video that I've done, if I stumble over a word or two, or if I jumble words or because I'm speaking too quickly and it doesn't sound very good, if I go into the text and I delete it, then it will cut it out of the video and the video will still continue on. And it looks like I didn't stumble over my words at all. You can see the edit. The one that I haven't used yet is the one where you can delete the words, type in a new word, and it'll make you look like you said that word.
That's what I'm talking about.
That one, it freaks me out a little bit.
That's what I'm talking about. Like anything that's going to play, because all of a sudden Jackson, like, and that's what makes us human, right? So it's like, if I do an which I know I do to fill, space.
Yeah, filler,
if some AI thing comes in and fills it so that makes, it's silent or turns like this, like, that's not me, right? So again, that's where I would probably draw the lines. Like anything that it's almost like a filter, right? Like almost like those filters you see on social media. It's like, is it really reflecting me? If it's really reflecting me and reflecting me, doesn't matter if it's good, bad, or the other. It's really reflecting me as the person, then I'm okay with it. If it's not, if it's a little bit of like tint and a little bit of makeup cover up, then I'm not okay with it because I'm totally good with the fact that like I want to come across as me and authentic and build trust rather than to be polished and to try and be something I'm not.
Again, going back, it's the warts and all, right? Warts and all connects. We're all human. Why trying to be so? I got enough lighting going on around here. I don't need any more from a digital perspective, right? So it's so true, man. We're all on the same page there, my friend.
All right, man. I can't believe we're well over an hour. You and I could. I bet we could do like a marathon session sometime.
Dude, we could do a Joe Rogan episode for sure. We could do 4 hours.
Oh, easily. Easily. We could do 3 hours easily. Frankly, like, look at today. We haven't caught up in probably, I don't know, a month and a half, I think. Maybe, about a month and a half. And we had no agenda, right? Like, we had nothing that we like, as you and I both like to do because we like to go free flow. But like, can you imagine if we set just like 10 bullet point topics that we want to cover? I bet we wouldn't even get through them and we could do 3 hours in our sleep.
I was about to say we'd have to limit to like one bullet point an hour. Like I feel like one bullet point an hour would give us enough. We'd go off in the conversation, dude. But to the point we said at the very beginning, man, like that's what makes this thing work, and that's our cadence, by the way. About a month and a half.
Yeah, isn't it? Yeah.
That's about our cadence.
You know what I'm going to do? I think we should do one. I think we're going to need to put some effort into it.
Yep.
We need to set it on the calendar. So I'll set it on the calendar for like a month and a half now. So it's like it'd be like April 1st, not April Fool's Day. We are going to do this, but and set it up. And then let's each of us, you come up with 5 topics that you want to talk about. I'll come up with 5 that I want to talk about.
Yep.
And then we'll do like, look, this is well over an hour. We can do like a 2-hour one.
That's would be so easy. Yeah. That'll be like a mini marathon. It's like a half marathon.
Dude, think about how much content we'll be able to cut from it.
It's going to be.
We'll have to allot ourselves time. We'll be like, listen, I need to get as much. We need like almost like our Senate and our House does, right? Like, gentlemen, on your time is expired. It's now.
And you and I are standing there going, no, we're going to filibuster till the wheels fall off.
Totally.
Exactly
my God, man. I love you to death, man.
Oh, same, brother.
All right. Thanks for coming, everybody. Thanks for joining me. Hang tight, Jackson. I'll end this for everybody else, and then we'll chat. Oh, man.